Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So, welcome to our podcast. This is a retrospective intro to the rest of the recording that you're going to see after this. Essentially, we kind of just hopped on call one night and decided to start building a new world from scratch based off a very faint idea I had a few nights ago. And it turned into like an almost 5 hour call, which we've recorded most of, except for, of course, the introductory section of the world. So, a lot of what we recorded ended up being just us knowing things that were impossible to infer from the actual footage because we just didn't say it before we started recording, and we didn't really reestablish it. So this introduction is a means of setting up so you guys know the plan for the podcast, the story behind the idea, and then the general premise of the series before you get into our brainstorming process, which we're going to show after the general premise just to kind of set up the story for the first episode of the podcast.
Yeah, that. I'm Jimmy, by the way.
Yeah, I'm Daniel. So, right. The plan for the podcast. Essentially, this is going to be a series of us building an entire world, whether it's for a novel or a series, whatever. Essentially, it's just us world building to get you into the mind of people who are more well versed in storytelling or writing or coming up with worlds, and showing you our process of how we come up with a world entirely through conversation and our brainstorming process. Essentially, we're going to do multiple episodes that kind of split up different themes and how we're going to world build and how we're going to cover different ideas as we work through the kinks and details of the world. So the first episode is going to showcase the general idea and premise of the universe, and we're also going to touch a little bit on the idea and the story behind it. So yes, essentially the story behind the idea is that a few nights ago I came up with a weird character idea. If you notice my profile picture on the recording there now, it's a lobster. Um, so I just kind of came up with the idea of what if there was a lobster man, and I thought, okay, so what kind of things do lobsters have? And I immediately thought of lobsters being boiled alive, and the fact that lobsters can actually stay up to 45 seconds of being alive before they die, and that they're also technically alive for a while after their organs are like fried while they're boiling alive. So I kind of thought that would just be terrifying.
Fucking terrifying. Jesus Christ.
So I thought, okay, like what would be a weird way that somebody could manipulate these powers? And I thought, right, okay, so some kind of like retardant ability or some kind of manipulation of boiling water, but also the fact that you can control and withstand boiling water. Maybe you could use like the boiling as a kind of mechanism to reamalgamate your organs based on the fact that they stay alive with their organs for so long. Um, so then you can kind of have some kind of weird regeneration factor for this character. And I thought, okay, so how would that work? Like if you're constantly boiling alive all the time, it's kind of just like, yeah, it kind of feels like you're being boiled alive. So essentially the lobster is just a guy and he constantly feels like he's burning and he's just being boiled alive at all times. So I said, okay, that doesn't really sound like that much of a power. It kind of sounds more like a curse. And I was like, okay, so maybe you might have gotten this power from like a curse. And I thought, okay, so what kind of world, like, how can I accommodate this? So I went to sleep, and the next morning I woke up and I just kind of thought, okay, so what kind of world could I build to accommodate a character like this existing? So I thought maybe he gained this curse from a sort of monster or a spirit. Obviously, it'd be some kind of crab or evil lobster creature. So I thought, okay, what if he was going to be killed by like a lobster monster? But then somehow he killed it and then got its powers. So by killing it, he's cursed to become a lobster monster of some kind, right? So I thought of the universal law of what if in this universe death is predestined? Fate is kind of decided for someone of how they're going to die.
Right.
But life is random or it's based on like a basis of free will. So you have the power to change your own destined fate. And if you dodge or cheat your death, essentially you're cursed with a curse or power that's relating to the way that you were supposed to die. So I thought, okay, for this guy, maybe he was supposed to be like a nice, normal kid, and then he turned into a bit of a hoodlum, like a rough around the edges kind of guy that he wasn't supposed to turn into. It's kind of the choices that he made. He got involved with wrong crowd somehow, and he had a nice family, supposed to grow up like normal. And then when he's walking up one day by the riverbank, the lobster monster jumps out and tries to grab him. It's supposed to like pull him down and boil him alive under the water, just like we boil lobsters and kill them and then like eat them. So the lobster monster jumps out of the water, and this guy just pulls out a gun and shoots him in the head. So this guy just kills the lobster, right? And obviously, just instantly you're cursed, right? Because you just shot the lobster in the head. So you definitely cheated your own death in that case. So like we just kind of got into, okay, how is this, like, how do the curses work? You got to curse based on the way you die, and then because you dodge your own death. So we thought, okay, what about the other circumstances, right? And James, you want to get into a little bit of the circumstances here? So these curses are imparted by spirits who represent a type of death, and then there's a bunch of spirits or different people, and then how do we go about, say, the question that came up for us next in our process was, what about if somebody else saves you from being killed? What happens then?
So I'm taking this now, right?
Yeah.
So the general idea that we came across with was if you save someone else from their fate, or like their predetermined death or whatever, the curse you get is not quite to the same extent as if you cheated your own death.
but you
Uh,
but you still get cursed.
yeah, you still get cursed because you're still cheating the death or cheating fate or whatever. So
Yeah, you're
sorry.
kind of just thinking like, yeah, you're getting their curse, like you're taking a part of their curse.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is you kind of get like a watered down version, like less positives, less negatives, because it's not your predetermined death. We toyed around with the idea. I don't know if we confirmed it after. The idea that they would take half of the curse and the other person would take the other half.
Yeah, but like different halves. So you get the Lobster Man, and then you get like Man Lobster, right? Like the one guy, Lobster Man, has the power that he's constantly boiling alive, but he has the head. Um, oh, we didn't really touch on this. So basically, Lobster Man is just like a normal guy. Picture just like a guy in a hoodie or a school uniform, but he has the head of just like a lobster randomly. So think like the year 1999, like Photoshop. Just stick a lobster head on a school kid's body, and that's Lobster Man. And also, you came up with the idea that he had like one giant crusher claw for no reason, and then he's just like reaching into his pocket trying to get his phone, and he crushes his phone. He's just like, I should really use the other pocket for this, huh?
Yeah. But basically it's just like skin color, skin color, skin color, red lobster head, red lobster claw, like right at the bone, like just perfect, like seamless, slapped right on there.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we also thought it'd be funny if since he's a kid and he has this giant like massive lobster claw that it's perpetually weighing him down because he's a scrawny little kid and can't hold up this like massive chunk of flesh and shell.
Yes.
I guess that's just because it's like now a part of his body.
Yeah, so just it looks like he's walking like a hoodlum all the time. You know how they do that like hunched over kind of walk, but it's just because he's being weighed down by the claw all the time.
Yeah.
Um, but then like in the other case, when you go and kill somebody, you kill the monster who's trying to kill somebody, or you shove them out of the way of the oncoming car, you get cursed. So then, for example, take Lobster Man, right? He's got the claw and the head, but then this other person who he saved, just has the legs and the tail, just like different parts of the curse. So you get different kind of advantages that come with that as well.
Wouldn't be the half of the curse I'd want personally.
Yeah, exactly.
So think about this, right? Maybe this guy doesn't feel like he's being boiled alive or anything. He just smells like garlic butter.
Just like imagine like you're out with the family, you take them out to Red Lobster, and then it's just kind of like, I wonder what half the curse is on the menu today.
uh, yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah. So we have the mob, right?
Yeah, right. Okay. So we came up with a thought, right? If people can manipulate these powers, like clearly these are curses. But in the case of Lobster Man, as we can see, you can manipulate these curses and warp them into a way that you can benefit from. So we thought, what about these crazy people who just didn't care about the fact that they were like burning alive all the time? And we just kind of came up with the idea for the mob, which is essentially a group of, like a Yakuza type group who basically stalk people and steal their deaths and steal the curses that they would have gotten. So it's essentially like they're just going around and saving people, but they're doing it with malicious intent, right? So they're trying to steal their curses, and then you can only dodge your own death once, so you can't stack that, and it's not really something you plan for either. But you can find other people and manipulate their death so that if you can save them from being killed, then you can take on their power, and then you can stack those. You can just go around like, what are the examples that we gave? It's like if you're afraid of people dying by like slipping and falling,
Yeah.
they're just like congregated around staircases and like wet floor signs at Walmarts. They're just gonna wait around.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just become like the Walmart wet floor demon or spirit or whatever. So these people are trying to gain power, and they don't care morally about or ethically about their own personal well-being. As long as they're powerful, they don't care if they haven't the ability to fit in society anymore.
For example, you can't work in a cubicle if you're constantly erupting into flame, but like you don't care if you're trying to conquer the world or whatever. You're not gonna be working in an office anyway, you know?
Yeah, so like we have the mob who are going after these powers, but then we also have the other group who are officials called exterminators.
Oh, just another note on the mob, real quick. Uh, Not only do they not care about their own personal well-being, they don't care about the wishes of the people they're saving, right? We talked at some point about like some people might just want to say, "Fuck it, I'm gonna die. I don't want to live the rest of my life constantly feeling like I'm being boiled alive, not the life I want to live or whatever." But these people aren't giving them the choice. They're just saving them because they want the curse.
Right.
Because not only do we take the power, I'm gonna save you regardless of if you want me to or not.
Yeah, because they get part of the power, right? So they also get part of the curse. So you're both cursed. It's not just like, but you get a lesser version. So that's why people hire exterminators so that they can call in these people to come and save them so they don't have to bear the entire brunt of their curse. And then they can kind of get saved or at least have a chance of being saved from some of the excruciating pain that comes with being cursed. So yeah, this kind of leads us to this really ethical, like interesting ethical dilemma that we came up with is that if you're faced with death, do you save yourself and bear the risk of being cursed? Or do you let yourself die? Because if you save yourself, there's a chance that you're going to get cursed. So do you take the risk of living the rest of your life as some kind of creature, or do you let yourself die? Right. And so this is why there's so many different ways that we figured out of manipulating this slightly so that your curse doesn't end up being as bad, which is like in partially offloading like part of the responsibility, which is why you can hire people that we called exterminators. So imagine that there's a lady who's like trapped in her car and there's a giant beetle monster banging on the door. You're thinking like that's probably my predestined death. If I'm being held down in the middle of this intersection by a giant beetle, you know, here come the exterminators, and you say, hey, can you come and kill, you call up the exterminator and say, can you come and kill the beetle for me, because basically then we'll split the curse.
Yeah, and also because it just pays like a fat stack of cash because these guys are terrifying. So that's part of why they do it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really bad job, right? Like this is a really bad job, and you can kind of get this idea metaphorically of capitalist society. Thinking of something like prostitution, for example, is that
For
a
your
lot of
fucking
people have
school
to
shopping.
sell their souls, right? In a way, in order to survive in the world. So a lot of exterminators could be people who just really need the money, which we'll get into later in another episode when we finalize the characters and the ideas. But just to touch on it here slightly, if you really need the money, you don't want it. You don't want to do this. You're terrified. You really don't want to be cursed, but you have no other way of protecting your family or survival. So there's a potential that you would go into this line of work as an exterminator and go, bear the price of taking on a curse or, you know, having the chance of taking on a curse, which is literally dehumanizing. You turn into a creature. So think about capitalism, society, proletariat people putting themselves in jobs they don't want to work, dehumanizing them. It's very clearly cut, this kind of symbolism here with literally turning into monsters to survive. So yeah, it's just, do you want to take the risk of being cursed? And and then we also touched on doctors, right, which was another big one because
Mm.
there's an entire other side. It's like there's an entirely other side to this. And what about illness, right? The doctors are saving people's lives all the time, right? In real life. Doctors save people's lives, but if some people are meant to die of an illness and then you go and save that person, then you're literally taking a chance every time you save somebody's life. Like a doctor has to take the risk every time. Do I save this person and take the risk of getting their curse or whatever, right? So doctors are paid very handsomely in this world because it's very risky, even more so risky than it is in our world.
Yeah, so we only talked about doctors, but I guess the same goes for any of those professions, firefighters, cops, rescue workers, what have you. Any occupation where you're like saving people on the regular.
Yeah, first responders, whatever. This even goes for like seeing somebody on the street. If you see somebody who's about to get hit by a car, are you going to shove that person out of the way? Or are you going to be like, is this world going to create awful people? It's just like, oh my god, that guy's going to get hit by a semi.
Oh, that's true. I don't know.
It's like, I'm not going to get hit by a semi.
Yeah, I don't know if I thought about that. Like, I'm not gonna help that old lady cross the street. Fuck that. Like, oh no, I don't want to turn into a car demon. Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So like, there's a lot of other questions about saving people, and another idea we had about the doctors was that I don't know how we don't know. Really, we're not really in the stage of understanding the scientific progress of the world. but we did kind of come up with this idea that some doctors experiment on themselves not to be affected by curses, become immune or remove curses from themselves, but you're tampering with fate again, and you're tampering with supernatural powers. So of course it's going to malfunction, and there's going to be a number of mutants underground, kind of mutated curses that are seen in doctors and scientists as they try. It's really temperamental tech here. You're getting into whether or not you can tamper with these things, and then it just flares up even more, and then you just become even more mutated. And I think that's pretty much where we kind of yeah, that's pretty much where we left off. I think I remember doing the editing at this point about the doctors that you came up with, and this is where we started recording. So I think that just about here we're gonna let this kind of merge. Listeners, you're gonna hear a bit of a bit of a dip in the quality here for the coming episode. It's just so at least up until episode 3 or so, probably, because we were holding our phones. We were recording with our phones, and I especially sounded bad for the first episode, I think. Maybe halfway through episode 2, it's a lot better, but I believe we're just going to let this intro kind of be the introduction to the world building that we missed on the first half of this, and let the rest of the episode and recording speak for itself. So for episode 1 and leading up to the end of episode 4 will all be our initial call that we did the first night that we started world building this world. So I guess the future us, we're gonna have to go and record the retrospective intro for episodes 2, 3, and 4 now. So guess I'll see you in those.
See you guys.
Cool.
Hold on. Time sync. Perfect. Got it.
Okay.
So let's go back and just kind of recap everything we've said so far. So we have Lobster Man, who is born a normal child, and then basically the idea is that fate is predestined. The death is predestined, but life circumstances can somehow mess up that fate, so that people can luck out of being killed, or they can somehow stop themselves from being killed based on decisions that they make up in their life. But if they dodge their own death, they're cursed, and they get a power related to what was supposed to kill them, because there's actually these kind of ghosts or spirits that are the ones that are controlling how everybody dies in some kind of third realm or something, or that there's monsters for the normal deaths, and then there's also just monsters that live in the world. So for example, the local legend of the first small town is that by the riverbanks there's an evil lobster creature that is kind of like a kappa that drags people down and boils them deep underwater and cooks their bodies and then eats it. So they basically cook them like we cook lobsters. But this yakuza, or this ruffian kind of hoodlum guy, was supposed to be a good kid and be innocent, but then he ended up becoming a hard ticket, so he has a gun on him. And when the lobster comes up, he just shoots the lobster in the head and then gains the lobster powers, becomes Lobster Man. And then there's other types of creatures that are kind of just nuisances, right? We said. And so the spider that always just always puts webs in your door frame when you're about to go on a date. So you walk into it and you have to go iron your shirt again. And then there's the goblin that goes out and unplugs all your stuff, but he can walk through walls. But then there's a power where you can't walk back through the other side of the wall. So basically, if you mess up, what was it? If you mess up an accidental death or a normal death, then you get a lesser power that you can stack, kind of. Or no, sorry, if you
stop someone
interfere with
else's.
somebody else's death. So if you interfere with somebody else's death, you're interfering with fate, but you're not saving yourself, so you don't take the entire brunt of the pain, I guess. But do you think that the other person...
You get a watered down version.
Yeah, you get a watered down version, so you only get half. Do you think that the other person also gets half the power then? Then you both have half?
They get a different half.
Okay, so what is that? So it's kind of like a gamble, and but the people who are out to do this stuff don't really care what side they get.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by different?
They're gamblers. So they get a different part of the power. So you know how Lobster Man has the Crusher Claw and the fucking whatever. Hypothetically, if that was one half of the power, the other guy just has the legs and a tail.
Okay, so he's like Lob Man.
He's Man Lobster,
Yeah, he's Man Lobster. Okay.
it's like it's the other way around. Like you get the parts of the power that the other person didn't get, and vice
Okay,
versa.
so this is why there's some people who have like a gorilla hand and then a lobster hand and then a head of a snake and then like there's just the you get bits and pieces of powers
Yeah.
um for doing something. But we want all of them to be kind of be unique monsters and unique but there's also circumstances where what happens if you stop a regular death, like our regular deaths, not monster related deaths in the world, those are still predestined. So are they controlled by some kind of otherworldly spirit that kind of predestines it,
Um.
and then you're cursed by that spirit kind of because it's not like you're not cursed by the actual monster because it's not a physical thing. It's just like the demon of blank sort of happenstance.
hmm.
So it's
What I
like
was thinking
would there
is
be
that
like kind
like
of general ones, like the car crash spirit
what I
or
was
whatever?
thinking is that like a lot of people don't have predestined deaths.
I feel like
It's just
everybody has
like
predestined death.
it's just like 30% of the population. So it's like common enough to where it's like definitely a common occurrence. Like you'll know dozens of people that have predestined death, but tons of people don't.
I'm thinking everybody does have predestined deaths, but you can't tell what they are. So if somebody gets cancer, they might be destined to get that cancer cured and then just like walk off of a bridge one day accidentally because they're playing Pokemon Go. You know what I mean? Like it's not necessarily if something happens that could kill them that is the thing that is destined to kill them. So then you have to kind of decide whether or not you want to save somebody because you don't know if that is supposed to be their destined event or not. Not like
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so like with the doctors and stuff, it's like they save people's lives, but sometimes they were supposed to, and sometimes they weren't, and they don't know. Sometimes they were supposed to save the person's life, and then they die from something else later on, and then sometimes they were supposed to die from that, and then the doctor saves them, not knowing.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
yeah, because like you don't know like is this going to bite me in the ass because you don't know.
The only thing I'm thinking is like, because people try to cheat death all the time, right? Like, because nobody wants to die.
Yeah, but the thing
So
is, in this world, people do want to die sometimes. But the decision is because the thing is, there's some people whose ideologies are they'd rather die than be stuck constantly burning alive every day as a lobster creature, right? Because it's like,
fair
oh well,
enough.
if a monster is gonna grab me, it's like this is clearly my destined fate. But then it's like, wait, what if this is just a random monster attack? Because those happen sometimes too. So it's like, wait, do I gamble on the fact that so it's like it kind of tests the will of certain
Oh,
characters.
okay. What
And we
about
see
this? What about
people
this?
who would rather get killed by monsters because they're not strong enough to take the chance that they might end up getting turned into blank. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, a monster's
How about
attacking me.
this? Right. So this is a take that would kind of grow the world a little bit. So, what's the penalty for if you die to something that isn't your fate? Because we've talked about dodging what is supposed to kill you, but what about dying to something that isn't? Say you were supposed to die when you were 70 from an alligator, but you actually died when you were like 30 because you shot yourself.
Okay, so I feel like I oh okay. Okay, so what is the destiny? Do you think that every time that the lobster kills somebody, like the lobster gets stronger and like how about this? Is the more that somebody dies by a specific cause, the more powerful the powers you get from avoiding that cause
It's
are.
like the Chainsaw Man thing, where like the more people are afraid of something, the more
Yeah,
powerful it gets.
yeah. So like the more people that
So,
die to it,
so people start trying to find creative ways to kill themselves.
yeah, you don't get like imparted by some kind of. But that's the thing, right?
Yeah,
Is if you kill yourself, then how is it? How does that harm you? Do you know what I mean? Like, is there a curse that like is like the suicide kind of thing, and it's just like you just come back, or
you
like
get
you
turned
can't
into a
kill
demon.
yourself? You get turned into a demon. So like you are the thing that causes other people to get,
You get reincarnated.
but as a spirit.
Yeah, as one of the cursed souls.
But nobody knows this. Maybe one character commits suicide and they like see a member of their family slowly getting depressed because they committed suicide and they're in spirit form trying to go back and tell that person not to commit suicide because then they
Mm,
get turned into a spirit too because the person doesn't know it, right? They're like they plan on like
mm.
killing they both plan on killing themselves and one person kills himself first and then it's just like, oh well, it's time for me to kill myself, and then he's like, no, like, oh, we fucked up, bro, like you don't want to do this, like we gotta go back and try and get him to figure it out by like.
But obviously, you
like,
can't fucking speak English.
Yeah, so you're like writing on the windows, and it's just like, just like they just keep walking. It's like a montage of them walking by the window that says like "Don't do it" or something written in the glass, or like some kid just as they're about to read it throws a snowball and like smudges the stuff. So it's just like keep getting unlucky every time. It's just like, you know what I mean? Or like they keep trying to kill themselves, and this guy, like for example, bro hangs himself with a rope in the closet or something, and then just as he's about to lose consciousness, the ghost is like there with a pair of like safety scissors trying to cut through the rope, like kind of. And so it's like, and then it's like, oh man, the rope snapped, and like every time they kill themselves, it's just like they fail in a very like last minute way, because it's like their friend trying to tell them not to kill themselves.
I was thinking of something. Oh, so when they get turned into like the ghoul or whatever the fuck, not really important the terminology we use right now.
You come up later, yeah.
They don't quite, like, they don't completely remember everything. Like, they don't remember how to communicate. Like, they can't write. They don't like know.
Or maybe
language.
Different ones keep different aspects of human understanding.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't remember their entire lives. Like, they're not completely functional in the same way that we are.
For example, they could have like a girlfriend, and they don't know if like that's their girlfriend or their sister or their cousin or whatever. Like their
they just know it was someone that was important,
somebody that was
in their
related
life.
to them. Yeah, and it's just like, how do I get in touch with this person if I don't know what my connection was to? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or it's like, like I like the idea of them like trying to communicate with someone, but they just genuinely do not know how, because they don't like. They no longer understand the language that they spoke when they were alive. So they go to write on something, and they just start scribbling, and they're like, "What the fuck?" Because they just can't. They're like, what was that letter supposed to look like again? And they just can't for the fucking life of them grasp like.
But wait.
They go to like write a note, and it just looks like a bunch of smudges.
But what if somebody is writing right in front of them, and like they see what the letter looks like? Like, can they not replicate that?
They can't read it.
Okay, so
they can replicate it, but they can't read it anymore.
Oh, so like they can talk to other people, but they don't know what other people are saying to them, kind of?
Yeah.
So they have to like read body language or something, like try and figure out what's going on.
Okay. Like there's some like major communication issue where it's like
And this is for people who die by not fate, by random circumstance, or is this just suicide?
I don't know. We can think more about that in a moment. But like it's like if someone was writing in Korean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you could copy down what they wrote.
You just don't know what it says.
That doesn't mean you know Korean, you know?
Yeah. You don't know what it says, yeah. Makes sense. And like, is this just like a have you ever seen Rise of the Guardians?
Yeah.
Is it just like Jack Frost kind of? Where it's
I don't quite remember the plot points of that movie.
Okay, so it's kind of just basically like the stereotypical ghost story where it's just like the ghost is trying to talk to you, but like oh, he can't see me, like he just walks right through me or whatever, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know.
Or like are they like around in some kind of physical form or some kind of like lively, like do they have to inhabit something in order to come down to earth or something? Like can they watch from above but then they have to like go into something to go down? Or like have to become different things, you know what I mean?
Ooh. They take the form of one of the one of like the monsters, like the kappa or the lobster or whatever the fuck, but people like are like afraid of them.
Oh, so it's like a kappa walking up and he's just like, let me tell you the philosophies of life, and it's just like, why are you?
Yeah, and you're like, holy shit, this fucking turtle monster, and he starts like popping caps in him.
Yeah, and it's just like, why are you thinking? And then he goes up and sent back, and he has to come back and try again.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude, that's so funny. Because like he just comes back as every monster, and it's just like, what? Like, what is happening this week? Why are monsters?
Yeah, he like sneaks through his walls, and he's like trying to like communicate with him, and he's like, fucking. It's like if you died and came back and were trying to like talk to someone, but you came back as like a rat, and you like try to get into their house, and they're like, "Holy shit, a rat!" and they call it fucking exterminator, and you get gas.
Yeah, exactly. And they just keep getting rid of you, and you have to keep coming back as different things.
Yeah.
That's really funny. But like, you can only come back as like monsters or something, like
Yeah.
because it's like technically you're a monster now, so it's like you're just being reborn as different types of spirits every time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like based on it's basically like so if you come back the first time, because say the first time you died, you got bit by a spider that was poisonous or something, right? And you die. And that's like the first, like you got unlucky, and it's just like you shouldn't have been playing hide and seek under that patio where there's a poisonous spider. You know, your real death was supposed to be, you know, you die by like
Venomous?
80 years. Sure, and so then you come back as like a giant spider monster, and then you get exterminated by human exterminators.
You
and
come
then
back as the doorway spider.
No, no. So you get exterminated, and then you come back as like the poison or the gas monster or whatever.
But not all of the monsters are people trying to come back to communicate.
No,
Some of them
like,
are
most
also
of
just
them are
normal.
not.
Like most of them are normal monsters. So that's the thing. It's not like
It's not
we
like
shouldn't kill
everybody.
them because they're nice and they're just trying to communicate with us.
No, that's a
Most
rare
of the
occasion.
time they are actual monsters, so it's completely warranted to just kill them whenever you see them, because the chance of them not being a monster is like pretty slim, so most people just can't be bothered to take the chance.
Yeah, but like then some monsters, like you just see a Kappa wearing like a top hat and just doing like some kind of absurd tap dancing shtick, and it's just like, why the fuck is that Kappa just hitting the gritty right now? And it's just like, I'm trying to
Yeah, and they're
communicate
like,
that I'm not.
and they're like, oh, it's a person trying to communicate, and they go like, and they try to talk to them, and it just eats them.
Oh, so it's like it's
Like a monster was smart. He's like, I figured out if I pretend like I'm a normal person
yeah,
trapped in a
trying to
Kappa's
do it.
body, then they'll come and be nice to me so I can eat them.
And then like you come to, and then
So
that person like
there's
dies.
there's like triple mind games on the go.
Yeah, you know what this sounds like? This sounds like a really like absurdist comedy series that like it's just like
Yeah.
episodic like bullshit that just keeps happening.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's what I feel like this would make a really good manga. But I'm trying to figure out how to turn this into like a novella or something. You know what I mean? Like
Okay, so I just had to start recording because we were throwing out ideas and we stumbled across something really
Stumbled
funny.
across something really bad. So basically, we were just like, okay, let's record the new intro. And then what was the question that we asked? I said, amongst our footage, we tried to figure out what happens. The question of what happens if you die by not your predestined death. Is there some kind of consequence? And so for most of the first episode, we were talking about okay, what happens if you commit suicide? What happens if you happen to get hit by a car? And so what the kind of consensus that we came to is one of two options. A, you come back as a spirit that represents that way that you died, and then you have to go and inflict it, the curses on other people. Or B / number two is you come back as a monster, just one of the normal monsters in the real world, and you're trying to communicate with people or whatever, and there's these really funny things that happens with like, oh, you don't know if it's a monster or a person, and like, how do you communicate? So we came up with a scenario that it's not that if you die by chance.
So I was just like,
happens.
so we were talking about this, right? We were just like shooting the shit a little bit. I was like, what if there's just some guy that goes around shooting people? like what if you die from an occurrence because some guy just felt like killing you today? Like your predetermined death or whatever was like a helicopter crash, but some guy just kicks down your door and shoots you right in the fucking face. Like what happens then?
I think your exact phrasing was fills you full of buckshot.
Yeah, he pumps you full of buckshot, I think was my
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that poses quite a problem, I think, for the world, because so many people are trying to save people, the mob and the exterminators, in order to gain their power or to protect them from getting the power, the curses. So what is causing? Because if you interrupt their predestined death by stopping their predestined death, then you get their curse, which is what the mob does. But what happens if you stop their predestined death or interrupt their predestined death by just killing them and making them die in a new way? Instead of saving them, you just kill them. So it's just the inverse of the mob. You go and kill them, and that's a whole lot easier than trying to save people. So why aren't the mob just going around shooting everybody and getting their curses that way? That's the issue, right?
Yeah, well, because I mean, I guess the thing is their predetermined death wouldn't have been being shot, so
Right. So if their predetermined death was some random thing, like you said, a helicopter crash, and then they go through and they kill the person, then that is making them miss or dodge or get rid
Oh,
of their
true.
predestined
I
death.
didn't think about that.
So they are not fulfilling their predestined death.
So they
So
are kind of, they are in a way preventing them
saving
from
them from their
dying by
predestined death.
making them die in a different way.
Yeah, so would they not still get the curse? Would they get the full curse? But then that brings us to the problem of what happens then if, you know, the people are looking for curses. Why don't they just go around shooting everybody and then they just get buffer and buffer and buffer and buffer until they stack a million curses
And then
because
it
they just
makes
go
it
and murder a
easier to
million
kill
people.
people
Yeah, so then they
because they have more
just
curses.
just exponential curses. It's just a curse cheat code. Like, what do we do to prevent that? Because we want people to go and save people as the way of stealing curses, not kill people and then make them dodge their death by being dead and thus losing their ability to fulfill their destiny because they're dead.
What if it was like if you kill people and then you get all the bad
Because
parts of what their curse would have been.
and you don't get the
You don't
powers.
get any of the benefits. So it's just like
Oh,
it's like you just
so
like shoot
murder is just like not an
you
option.
shoot the kid and now you just feel like you're boiling alive for the rest of your life with nothing else. Like that's it. You just now are in constant pain.
Oh my god, you know that would be a really funny arc is if nobody had tried this before, or maybe
This
and then
world's
we
been
just
around, it's like
follow.
since the dawn of time.
No, no, no,
First
no, no, no,
fucking
no.
time some guy decides to do this.
Okay, well, maybe we don't know, or
The
maybe somebody
year is
tries to see if it's changed.
2125, and someone decided to think for the very first time.
Listen, like it could be a really funny arc of just following this one guy going and murdering a bunch of people and just being just destroyed in every way possible. Like
Yeah,
his body is just combusting in every
he's
angle.
a professional hitman. Uh, and every time he kills someone, he just gets progressively more and more absolutely destroyed.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't think that would hitmen exist in this world or would killing, because if that's the case then nobody would murder anybody, and that brings us back to another question we had earlier is, you know, if you have a natural death, then you die and you get killed or you get cursed by a ghost or a spirit that represents that form of death, and if you fulfill your death then you get nothing. But what happens, and if you get killed by a monster you get cursed by the spirit of the monster. So what happens if you get killed by like a serial killer or something? That would also be predestined, but we never came to a conclusion on, you know, uh, like what kind of curse would you get? Is this just like a murder kind of curse or a
You
murder?
just become mentally unwell.
Oh wait, but the thing is, if you get murdered, then you don't get a curse because you're dead.
Oh, true.
So yeah, so
So
that's not
then,
something we have to
like,
worry about. But what about the murderer though? That's the question.
the
And
murderer,
that brings us back. That brings us back to the.
they
I
become,
guess you
like,
come back as like
schizophrenic.
the murder. No, no, no. It's okay. It brings you back to like the murder question. Of the, or maybe you could just get reborn as like the murder ghost or the murder spirit. If you're getting brought back, I guess you probably don't turn into a monster. You just turn into a spirit in that case. Um, unless you get reincarnated as a different serial killer.
The time I got reincarnated as a serial killer.
Yeah. So, but what happens to the serial killer? Which is the question that we brought back earlier. Because what happened? Like, what? I don't know. I don't think we're allowed to say this on YouTube, so I'm not going to say it. But what happens if you
Whisper it to
go
me.
into what happens if you go into a large venue of people and kill a number of those people? Do you not just stack up those curses? Or
So you're saying, like, if you happened to decide a method that was,
yeah, that of which
crowd
you would unalive.
control.
Yeah, crowd control. Yeah, yeah. It's just like you know at concerts, for example, how you steer people in the right direction to go you know
If you were using
through
your
the crowd.
ultimate ability on a large team of
Yeah.
players.
So what would stop people from doing that and just racking up infinite curses? Is it just that they don't get powers? They just instantly flame and die.
Yeah, I think what it is like you just get,
You don't get the benefits of the curse.
yeah.
Okay,
So it
so
takes whatever the predetermined death would have been, and then just gives you all the negative effects of that.
do you think that this would be um
So, like, let's say, for
so does that just
example,
mean that tragedy doesn't exist in this world? Do you know what I mean? Like, or would people still try and do that mass, you know, action? Um, and then they just get punished anyway because some people with like certain ideologies of certain kinds will think that it's because that they're meant to do that and that's destiny. Do you think that we could play with real world concepts of murder and destiny
I
that
feel
exist in
like
the real world?
people that do things like that have already kind of settled their debts with themselves. Because even if it was in real life, I mean, they'd get arrested or
They die.
they'd get like the electric chair or whatever. So I feel like people that do that even in our world have kind of come to terms with the fact that there's no backing down. Like there's no coming back from that. They're going to do it
They're okay with the
and they're just
suffering,
going to
basically.
like, yeah.
So like it still
I
exists.
feel like
It's
it would
just
be
that
the
that
same
person
effect.
instantly catches up in flames, basically, right?
Yeah, or whatever
So it
the
doesn't
effect
stop
would
it from
be.
happening the same way that our own, like the universal laws of this world doesn't stop it from happening the same way that our legal system laws don't stop it from happening in our world. Um, it's just that you get consequences for your
It's
actions.
like if you murdered someone that was supposed to die from a shark attack, it's like, well, sharks can't breathe on land, so now you can't breathe on land either.
Oh yeah, so it's just a very specific thing that's just like, yeah, you're just cursed forever.
Yeah.
It's a very bad case.
Sharks can't
But the
walk,
thing
so
is,
neither can you. Sharks can't breathe on land, so neither can you. So you just
so
sit on
you
the
just
ground and start like suffocating, I guess. Why are all of my ideas about suffocation?
yeah, for those of you who don't know, none of you will get this because it was cut from the final version of our pitching monsters
Yeah, Daniel
episode.
considered it too dark.
Yeah, we're not going to
Reasonably
bring up
so.
we're not going to bring up exactly the details of why this person couldn't breathe. Um, but yeah. So
I mentioned the concept of them looking vaguely bluish gray to denote the fact that they are suffocating, and he said that is a very graphic image.
that wasn't what I was
No,
talking about.
it was amongst other things, but that's the only thing I'm going to say at the moment because you know.
Because yeah, not lobster related enough for this world.
Something like that.
So but the question again, right, is what happens to killers in general? Like, is this just a world with significantly less killing, like just less murder because of these consequences that exist in the world? Or do you think that are there certain sadistic people who kill people anyway because they want to suffer in some way? Is that a thing that exists, do you think?
That would be masochistic.
Yeah, I'm pretty yeah,
I think.
masochistic, yeah.
I
That
don't
is
know.
correct.
I didn't. I'm not really into that BDSM shit, but you know. Yeah, I feel like there'd still be killers, because like in any world where there's people that exist and they have the option to kill each other, eventually someone's gonna kill someone. You know, like the sniper said in TF2, as long as there's two people left on the planet, someone's gonna want someone dead. And I feel like in the same way that in our world, some people think, I'm gonna kill this guy because I don't care, he deserves to be dead. If I get arrested or I get put on death row, so be it. It's gonna be the same thing. Like, some people are gonna be like, I need to kill this guy, he doesn't deserve to live. If I get a bad curse, so be it, it'll be worth it because this guy is no longer alive.
So we think that it's more so heavily planned and, pre-decided murder, right? Premeditated murder rather than rather than them just murdering somebody on a whim, basically. Unless like you said, it's a masochistic action, or it's a kind of like a fulfillment of self condemnation in a way. Um, so these kind of grand kind of ideas or understandings of just planning, just I'm gonna go do this, and what happens happens,
Ooh, I
even
just
though
thought
they
of
know
something.
what.
So, this whole world concept only applies to people, right?
Correct.
Okay.
What are you talking about? Animals?
Anything. Animals,
What do you-
monsters, whatever. They're all predetermined, so everything is fucked up.
So they're just dogs walking around with like 18 dicks. It's just the dogs like it's like tell your mutated dog to stop pissing on my lawn.
Dude, that's Schnorglaws. He's just like that, bro. He pees Mountain Dew Baja Blast. He's just like that.
The wiener dog. It's just because you
It's the wiener
dicks are other dog.
dog. Oh, that's very funny.
Everyone of his dicks are just a different dog. Okay.
The wieners dog.
The wiener plural dog.
Wiener plural.
Okay.
Oh, man.
So we think that just the killers are just basically.
Yeah, let's keep it with just people.
Yeah, let's keep it with just people. I think.
We can do that as a
The
little fun
ghosts- the
brainstorming
spirits-
project.
Yeah,
but
the spirits don't care enough about the animals and the monsters because
Real.
how spirits form are people who kill themselves, right? Or people who die by not the way that they were supposed to. Those are the people who turn into spirits. I guess a select few will come back as monsters, depending on maybe. How about this? Only monster related deaths turn into the monster that they were killed by.
Okay.
But if you die in any other way that is not your predetermined way of natural causes, etc., you turn into the thing, the spirit representing the thing that ended up killing you.
All right, so that would be murderers, rope, etc.
Yes, I think. I remember we had I'm assuming that this section we're gonna just plug in the end of episode 1, I think, because it's related to a lot of the topics we talked about in episode 1. So I guess you get a second viewing of us in episode 1 because we had the little intro that we added.
You can do whatever you like. I'm not the one editing this.
That's true. So earlier in episode 1 we talked about the idea of suicide, of that you come back as a ghost, but you're trapped in this kind of limbo and you're trying to speak
Can you
to
say
the
that
people
word on
who are
YouTube?
alive.
Self-termination.
Yeah, okay. So if you induct self-determination.
Determination? You're very
Self-determination.
confident.
Yeah, so if you just become really self-determined.
Yeah, that.
I'm not even gonna say termination. Wait, we say exterminators though. Okay, so if you
If you
self-exterminate.
unplug the computer.
Yeah, okay. So if you offload your files.
If you turn off your device. Offloading your files sounds like taking a shit.
Okay.
If you
That's
power
offloading
off
your-
your device.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you do that,
You guys know what I mean.
we discussed about coming back. Bro. They're throwing snowballs at me through my window. What the fuck?
At least they're not bricks.
Bro, shut the fuck up! Oh, what the fuck?
Hey, Macarena.
How'd you get out there? Your window is attached to the thing?
I think he
Okay.
sees a
No,
demon.
I'm filming right now.
I think he sees a demon.
For YouTube. I'm gonna leave that in.
Macarena.
Yeah. They're on the roof right now. Guys, I'm leaving that in, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they were just throwing snowballs from the roof over there.
How?
Like
No.
it's the layer of the roof is on level with my window. So they walked out from their window.
Okay.
And they threw like directly. I thought they were on the ground at first, and then he was like, "Dude." Anyway, so if we're so killers,
if you do
die by
that
natural
particular
causes,
action,
then that was where we were. So it's the limbo idea, right? Is that you couldn't communicate with the people who were left alive or who were also trying to
do that
adopt
particular thing.
Determination, right? Self-determination.
Yeah.
They're also trying to do that. Then you go back and you try and communicate with them, but there's a barrier. So is that the very specific instance? I feel like the becoming a self-exterminator action causes a very specific instance of turning into a spirit, in which you're trapped in this kind of limbo, and you don't become a spirit in the sense that you impart curses on others, but you're more so forced to suffer from your own curse for eternity because you cursed yourself in this sense, right? So it's the kind of the worst curse, I think, in that way.
So if you determinate, if you be anyway, if you do that and you become a
Yeah.
spirit, can you communicate with other people that are spirits
Who also became
who
self-exterminators?
were also determined in themselves?
Um, I think so. I think that could be an interesting element that you can create some dialogue if we ever follow a character who was a self-exterminator.
Hey, are you dead? Yep. You? Yep.
More so, you can have some more interesting philosophical conversations.
You're like,
I
man, I
think.
probably shouldn't have done that. Yeah, no, this sucks. If I knew it was gonna be like this, I probably wouldn't have done it. Oh, look, that's my friend. He's gonna do it. No, stop, stop, don't do it. No, no,
Like,
it's so bad. No, don't do it.
and then
Some of that.
the one guy is trying to write on the window to his friend, and then the other guy
And he
is going
throws a
and erasing
snowball
his
into his
message.
window.
Yeah, and then the other guy is going and erasing it. It's like, dude, stop doing that. And it's just like, man, I'm just having fun. I haven't had a friend in so long. I'm just fucking with you.
Man, I'm gonna be fucking dead forever. It doesn't matter. Same shit to me, anyways.
That's it to me, anyways. I'm already cursed, bud. What are you gonna do to me now?
Two's boring, three's a crowd.
Yeah. We need another one. Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
Just the two of us will get boring too.
Just the two of us.
We need at least three so we can
could
play
make it
Crazy
if
Eights.
just the two of us.
Shut
Just the two
up!
of us. Okay.
Get out!
Did you see the Get Out meme? Okay, so I think that this is where we're gonna end it for episode 1.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So I guess that was an interesting side tangent there, guys. So episode 1 is becoming exceedingly long.
Well,
Don't
we
expect
gotta lay
episode.
all the groundwork, right?
Yeah, we're laying all the groundwork. So expect more probably interruptions like this in the future. Because we're still figuring out the world, and I guess that's the fun in it, is that you just watched us have a post initial brainstorming session about the initial brainstorming session.
Yeah. Yeah, that.
Realizations
said.
about the world, right? Realizations about the world. Okay, so hopefully you stick around to watch the world get more fully realized.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll see you in episode 2.
Yeah, I hope you
So
guys enjoyed. See you around.
have a nice night. Bye bye.
Bye.